Good morning, everyone. It's very difficult to follow a riveting retrospective of cartoons and animation and great television history, but I want to welcome you to your National Museum of American History. I'm Brent Glass, director of the museum, and today is a very special donation ceremony where we will be receiving Sam and Friends, the character Sam and Friends, including the original Kermit the Frog, and welcoming this collection home to Washington, D.C. I do want to remind everyone that the mission of this museum is to tell the story of America. And we do that through our research, through our collections, through our exhibitions, our public programs, our websites, our publications. And I always remind people at an event like this that we are in the forever business here at the Smithsonian. So receiving this collection into the national collection, even though it has great local importance and has great local associations for people who've grown up in Washington, D.C., this is really coming into the national and international collection forever. And we take that responsibility seriously. We are very pleased to welcome Jane Henson back to the museum, to thank you and your family, Jane, for this very wonderful donation to the National Collection. Jane is the co-founder of the Muppets and founder and board member of the Jim Henson Legacy. So it's wonderful to have you again with us. And we were just talking before the ceremony that was about 4 years ago or 5 years ago that we met, and began talking about this, and actually the conversations about the relationship with the Henson legacy go back over a decade. So this is a big moment for the museum. I also want to recognize a number of individuals associated with the Jim Henson Legacy. Bonnie Erickson, who is president of the Jim Henson Legacy, and artist, designer, and builder of some of the most famous Muppets, including Miss Piggy, Statler, and Waldorf. Welcome, Bonnie. Arthur Novell. I guess Arthur would be called the sage in residence and director of the Jim Henson Legacy. Public relations firm, represented the Jim Henson Company for more than 20 years. Arthur, great to see you again. Welcome back. Karen Falk, is Karen here? Archivist for the Jim Henson Company and trustee of the Jim Henson Legacy. And also Al Gottesman. Al, I thought I saw Al here. Welcome, Al, President Emeritus of the Jim Henson Legacy and former General Legal Counselor for the Jim Henson Company. These are all people who I've gotten to know over the last several years, and it's great to have you back in your National Museum of American History. Also with us today is someone we're trying to get him to loosen up a little bit, get out of the shell, Willard Scott, who's here, whose relationship with Jim and Jane Henson go back to 1953, when they started working together on a Washington area radio show. And also Willard worked with Ed Walker. Many of you know he's still on broadcasting here in Washington. They were known as the Joy Boys. And so welcome, Willard. Great to see you again. You know, puppetry is one of the oldest forms of entertainment and also of expression. And I was thinking about the fact that in our military history gallery, The Price of Freedom, Americans of War, one of the first things you see is a puppet show, which was a form of information sharing in the 18th century. And so puppetry is really important to this museum in telling the story of America. And we have a very respected puppet collection. Sam and Friends are ingenious and creative characters who will add a spark of humor and imagination to our museum. They are joining several other Henson creations, including an updated Kermit from 1969, and Oscar the Grouch with his trash can, that are all part of our collection today. The puppets in our collection are wide-ranging. How many of you remember Howdy Doody? We have Howdy Doody. How many of you remember Charlie McCarthy? Edgar Bergen's Charlie McCarthy. Bob from the ABC TV show Soap is part of our collection. And we have some puppets from the 1890s, I'm told, that were used by an itinerant preacher who was using puppets to counsel people against alcohol abuse, trying to use puppets to make that, or maybe the Henson collection, I guess, Henson Legacy. Arthur didn't happen to see that show. With these puppets, we provide insights into American identity, and we also explore entertainment and popular culture throughout our history. And Jim Henson embodied the innovation and ingenuity that are inherent in American culture. Beyond the entertainment value, Henson's creations helped educate and helped inform his audiences. And they continue to influence us today, especially young people. So it isn't just the entertainment value that we're talking about as far as the importance of this collection. It's really the educational value that is so important and still continues to the present. Sam and Friends will go on exhibition in our third floor Popular Culture Gallery when we expand that gallery in November, along with the 1969 Kermit the Frog and several other favorites of popular culture, entertainment, music, and sports. The Kermit that is showcased has been showcased in several Smithsonian exhibitions and is very popular with our visitors. And I know that Sam and Friends will be very well received by the public when they go on view. We are very pleased that in the past 2 years, since we reopened the museum, we now have 4.2 million visitors per year coming to American history. And those visitors come from every state in the country and from all over the world. And these characters, these puppets, are known all over the world, and I know they will be delighted to see them. I often say that we have a world-class museum. We have a great location here on the National Mall. We have an outstanding collection. We have dedicated visitors, and we're one of the most popular history museums in the country. But we also have an amazingly dedicated and competent and professional staff. And without this staff, we would not be the museum that we are today. And there were 2 staff members who, in particular, really worked with the Henson collection over a dozen years. Catherine Purge, who heads our exhibitions program. Catherine, thank you for your great work. And Dwight Bowers, who is the curator for our entertainment history collection. And you'll hear from Dwight in a moment. But I do want to recognize them as representative of a team of people who work sometimes behind the scenes that really make this museum what it is today. And I'm just really grateful for their dedication and their great professionalism. So please welcome Dwight Bowers.
Good morning, all. Thank you for being with us today. I'd especially like to thank Jane Henson, with whom we've had a long friendship, and her family for this splendid gift to the National Collections, and I think that deserves some applause. And I'd just like to say to these figures, welcome home, guys. I'd also like to thank Bonnie Erickson, Al Gottesman and Arthur Novell of the Jim Henson Legacy, and Karen Falk of the Jim Henson Company for their tireless support in helping to make this donation happen. As Brent said, the museum is host to a number of puppets in our entertainment collection, and we have a number of styles that we embrace, from hand and finger puppets to marionettes and figures used in stop-action puppetry. Puppets from 19th century medicine shows and early 20th century vaudeville, to those created for nightclubs and for television shows. So we try to cover the entire spectrum of puppetry. And speaking of television shows, these genially eccentric creatures were the stars of Sam and Friends, a local 5-minute show that Jim and Jane Henson created and performed on TV between 1955 and 1961 on WRC-TV television here. The show was broadcast twice daily, and you have an indication that it wasn't just for kids, even at the slot that occupied for television. It was broadcast after the Huntley-Brinkley News Report and before the Tonight Show. So it was entertainment for all ages. Sam and Friends established an important feature of the Henson style, which combines puppets, slapstick comedy, and popular music styles. And it was always intended for everyone. And I'd like to introduce the cast members, if I may. First, the fellow in the red jacket, the bald, wide-eyed, and jug-eared Sam. Arm in arm with Sam is the original Kermit, which was made from Jim Henson's discarded mother's, his mother wasn't discarding his mother. The adjectives got the wrong place. From his mother's discarded coat. And he's not a frog yet. He's a reptile-like creature, as you notice there. Below Kermit is a voracious purple monster, the first of many Henson monsters, named Yorick, who we realize whose name bears reference to Hamlet, to a character in the Gravediggers scene. Over Kermit's right shoulder is a member of the Beat Generation, and I'm sure bears kinship with Jack Kerouac, Harry the hipster there behind his sunglasses. Next to Sam is a figure known as Moldy Hay, who bears a slight resemblance to the later Muppet, Ernie from Sesame Street. And Moldy Hay is embracing a rotund puppet with the delicious name of Mushmouth. Next to Moldy Hay is the wild-eyed Professor Madcliffe. And next to Madcliffe is the snake-like Icky Gunk. Yes, that's right, Icky Gunk, that's spelled right. With his fangs bared, for all those fans of Twilight who think they started the tradition. The forlorn-faced figure with the hat standing above Icky Gunk is a character known as Chicken Liver. And finally, next to him is Pierre, the oldest surviving puppet creation of Jim Henson. As Brent said, I grew up in the Washington area and was an avid audience member for broadcasts of Sam and Friends. I would sit completely enthralled in front of our big Magnavox television set, and I would memorize the routines, which I would perform for family members and anyone who entered our house at the drop of a hat. And even in the reenactments of a 5-year-old, the Henson humor proved indestructible. These characters informed my own sense of humor, as the Henson style informed the humor of the world. But don't worry, I'm not going to do any reenacting today. And now we're going to have the signing of the deed of gift, and I'd like to introduce our honored guest, who has made this donation possible. She is co-founder of the Muppets and guides their history with equal amounts of authority and charm. It is my pleasure to introduce Jane Henson, and Brent, if you would come up, you can sign the deed of gift. Sure.
We're going to sign, and then I'd like you to say a few words. Okay. Right here. Purple hand. Check.